Let me ask you a question. When was the last time you truly embraced silence? Not the awkward kind, not the forced kind, but the kind that gives you power, the kind that makes people lean in, the kind that creates space for clarity, wisdom, and success to flow into your life. Most people are afraid of silence. They think speaking louder, doing more, and constantly proving themselves is the way to get ahead. But the truth? The most powerful people in the world aren't the loudest. They're the ones who know when to listen, when to pause, and when to strike. Because here's the secret. When you stop chasing, things start coming to you. When you stop forcing, life starts flowing. And when you master silence, you master yourself, and that's when everything changes. Today, I'm going to show you why silence is your greatest weapon, your strongest ally, and the key to unlocking a level of influence, confidence, and success you never imagined possible. Are you ready? Let's begin. We live in a world that glorifies noise. Everywhere you turn, someone is talking, posting, debating, filling every second with words as if silence is something to be feared. People mistake volume for strength, believing that the louder they are, the more important they become. But let me tell you something, true power doesn't come from how much you say, it comes from when and how you choose to speak. Look at the greatest leaders, the most respected figures in history. They don't rush to fill the silence. They don't speak just to be heard. They observe, they listen, they calculate, and when they finally open their mouths, people stop and pay attention. That's not weakness, that's control. That's knowing the value of your words, the weight they carry, and the impact they can have. Most people think power comes from dominance, from being the loudest in the room, but real power, it's about presence, the ability to hold yourself with such confidence that you don't need to prove anything, the ability to be comfortable in stillness while everyone else scrambles to be seen, the ability to control your emotions, your reactions, and the way you navigate situations rather than letting them control you. Silence demands attention in a way that noise never can. Think about it. In a heated argument, who holds more power? The person frantically shouting, trying to force their point, or the one who stays calm, lets the other person exhaust themselves, and responds with precision when the moment is right? The person who reacts emotionally loses control. The person who stays silent, who watches, who speaks only when it truly matters, that's the one who wins. And it's not just in arguments. It's in negotiations, relationships, leadership, every aspect of life. The more silent you are, the more people lean in. They start wondering what you're thinking, what you know that they don't. And that curiosity, that's power. Because when people don't know your next move, they can't manipulate you, they can't predict you, and they certainly can't control you. But the problem is, most people don't trust silence. They feel the need to fill every moment with words because they fear being overlooked. They equate speaking with strength and quiet with weakness. But let me tell you, the moment you embrace silence, the moment you stop rushing to respond, explain, or defend, is the moment you take control. Because in that space of silence, you're no longer reacting to the world starts reacting to you. The world is drowning in noise. Every second, there's a new demand for your attention. A notification, a conversation, an opinion, an expectation. People are constantly reacting, constantly distracted, constantly overstimulated. And in all that chaos, they wonder why they feel lost. They wonder why they don't have answers, why they can't hear their own thoughts, why every decision feels rushed, uncertain, and clouded. But here's the truth. Clarity doesn't come from thinking harder or speaking more. It doesn't come from running faster or doing more. Clarity comes from stillness, from stepping back, from quieting the external noise long enough to actually hear what's happening inside you. Most people don't give themselves that space. The moment they feel uncertain, they start looking outward for answers. They seek validation. They ask for opinions. They chase one thing after another, hoping that movement will somehow lead to understanding, but all they're doing is adding more layers of confusion, more distraction, more voices drowning out their own. And the more they seek outside themselves, the further they get from the real answer, the one that's been waiting in the silence all along. Think about the greatest breakthroughs in history. They didn't happen in the middle of chaos. They didn't happen while someone was caught up in distraction. They happened in moments of deep stillness when the mind was quiet enough for truth to surface. Scientists, artists, philosophers, visionaries, they all understood the power of stepping away, of letting go, of creating space for clarity to emerge instead of forcing it. But in today's world, people are afraid of stillness. The moment things get quiet, they feel uncomfortable. They reach for their phones, turn on the TV, fill the gap with mindless chatter, because silence forces them to face what's really going on inside. Doubts, fears, unresolved thoughts. And instead of confronting those things, they escape. They keep moving, keep distracting, keep piling on more noise, never realizing that the very thing they're running from is the key to everything they've been searching for. Because when you allow yourself to be still, when you stop reacting to every little thing, something powerful happens. Your mind clears, your emotions settle, the pressure to force an answer disappears, and suddenly the answer appears on its own. You start seeing situations differently, noticing patterns, understanding things you couldn't grasp before. The solutions that felt impossible before suddenly seem obvious, as if they were there all along, just waiting for you to get quiet enough to see them. And it's not just about problem solving. It's about everything, your purpose, your relationships, your next move in life. People spend years feeling lost, looking for direction, wondering why they can't find the right path. But the reason they can't see it is because they've never stopped long enough to let it reveal itself. They've never embraced the stillness required for real clarity to emerge. Instead of allowing their own intuition to speak, they drown it out with endless external input, making it impossible to know what they actually want, what actually matters, what they're actually meant to do. And this is why so many people feel stuck, because they believe movement equals progress. But movement in the wrong direction is just wasted energy, more noise, more chaos, more confusion. The real progress, the real breakthroughs, the real clarity, those don't come from forcing, they come from allowing, from stepping back, from being still, from getting quiet enough to finally hear the truth that's been there all along. Presence is not about being the loudest person in the room. It's not about demanding attention, dominating conversations, or constantly making sure people know you exist. True presence, the kind that turns heads, commands respect, and influences without effort, comes from something much deeper. It comes from control, from the ability to carry yourself in a way that makes people feel your energy before you even say a word. Most people misunderstand presence. They think it's about talking more, being the center of attention, proving themselves at every opportunity. But in reality, the people who truly own a room don't do it by forcing themselves into the spotlight. They do it by knowing when to speak and when to be silent, when to engage and when to observe. when to let their energy speak for itself rather than trying to push it onto others. Controlled presence is about intentionality. It's about walking into any situation with complete awareness of your energy, your posture, your expression, your words. It's about being so in control of yourself that others can't help but take notice. And this has nothing to do with arrogance or trying to impress people. It has everything to do with an unshakable sense of self. Because the person who is truly grounded, who doesn't feel the need to prove anything, is the person who naturally draws others in. The problem is most people aren't in control of their presence. They let their emotions dictate their energy. They fidget when they're nervous. They speak too quickly when they're insecure. They overcompensate with forced confidence when they feel uncertain. They walk into rooms hoping for validation instead of owning their space with certainty. And because of that, they lose the ability to influence, to lead, to make people feel something just by being in their presence. Think about the most compelling people you've ever met, the ones who made you stop, pay attention, and hang on to every word. They weren't frantic. They weren't trying too hard. They weren't filling every second with unnecessary chatter. They carried themselves with deliberate energy, calm, collected, powerful. They made people feel something without even trying. Because their presence wasn't scattered, it was controlled. Controlled presence is about understanding the power of restraint. It's about knowing that you don't have to react to everything, that you don't have to be the first to speak, the first to move, the first to prove yourself. It's about knowing that the strongest person in the room is usually the one who speaks last, who listens more than they talk, who lets others reveal their own weaknesses before making a move. And it's not just about social settings. This applies to leadership, relationships, negotiations, every aspect of life. The person who rushes to react loses control. The person who knows how to hold themselves back, how to stay composed, how to let others come to them instead of always chasing, that's the person who holds all the power. But controlled presence doesn't just happen. It's something you cultivate. It requires discipline. It requires an awareness of how you carry yourself at all times. Your posture, your tone, your pacing, your ability to pause instead of filling space with unnecessary words. It requires the confidence to stand in silence, to let moments breathe, to let others wonder what you're thinking instead of constantly explaining yourself. And the best part, once you master this, once you learn to hold your presence instead of giving it away, everything changes. People start treating you differently. They start listening more intently. They start respecting your words because they know you don't waste them. They start feeling your energy before you even say a word. Because when your presence is controlled, it becomes undeniable. There's an undeniable force behind silence, a magnetic energy that draws people in without force, without effort, without the need for validation. It's a rare quality in a world where everyone is fighting to be seen, heard, and noticed. Most people believe that the more they talk, the more they prove themselves, the more attention they'll get. But the reality is, noise pushes people away while silence pulls them closer. Think about it. Who intrigues you more? The person who constantly speaks, filling every gap with words, explaining themselves endlessly, needing to be heard at all times, or the one who speaks sparingly, who listens more than they talk, whose words carry weight because they don't waste them? There's something captivating about those who don't feel the need to overshare, who don't rush to fill the silence, who are so at peace with themselves that they don't seek external validation through constant chatter, Silence creates mystery. It makes people wonder what you're thinking, what you know that they don't. It makes them lean in, pay closer attention, because the less you give away, the more they want to know. People are naturally drawn to what they can't easily grasp, to what isn't immediately obvious. And that's the power of silence. It forces curiosity, it sparks intrigue, it makes you someone worth listening to. Noise, on the other hand, does the opposite. It overwhelms, it desensitizes, it makes people tune out instead of tuning in. When someone talks too much, when they constantly explain themselves, when they force their opinions onto others without pause, they don't pull people in, they push them away. Because noise is exhausting, it's predictable. It doesn't leave room for anticipation, for curiosity, for depth. The most influential people in the world aren't the ones talking the most. They're the ones talking the least, but saying the most when they do speak. They understand that silence isn't empty, it's full of potential. It's a pause that makes people anticipate what's coming next. It's a tool that makes their words land with more impact because those words aren't diluted by excess. But the problem is, most people are uncomfortable with silence. The moment there's a gap in conversation, they rush to fill it. The moment they feel uncertainty, they start talking more, trying to overcompensate. They mistake stillness for weakness, thinking that if they're not constantly engaging, they'll be forgotten. But in reality, it's the opposite. The ones who know how to use silence effectively are the ones people can't ignore. Silence allows for presence. When you're silent, you become more observant, more aware of the energy in the room, more attuned to what's actually happening beneath the surface. While others are distracted by the sound of their own voices, you're picking up on what's not being said, the shifts in body language, the unspoken cues, the opportunities that most people miss because they're too busy talking. And silence isn't just powerful in conversation, it's powerful in negotiation, in leadership, in relationships, in influence. When you don't react immediately, when you don't rush to fill the space, you create tension, you make the other person second guess themselves, you let them reveal more than they intended while you remain in control. The person who can hold their silence the longest always has the upper hand. But silence isn't just about external power, it's about internal strength. It's about knowing that you don't need to prove yourself to be valuable. That you don't need to seek attention to be important. That you don't need to constantly speak to be heard. When you embrace silence, you communicate something far more powerful than words ever could. Certainty, confidence, depth, control, and the world notices. It notices the person who carries himself with quiet authority, the one who doesn't seek attention but commands it. The one who lets their actions, their energy, and their presence speak louder than words ever could. Because when you master silence, you don't chase attention. Attention comes to you. Most people underestimate the power of a pause. They rush to fill every moment, every conversation, every silence with words, believing that constant talking equals control. But the reality, the pause is where the real power lies. It's in that brief moment of stillness that tension builds, that meaning is amplified, that influence takes root. Pausing is an art, one that separates those who command attention from those who simply make noise, because when you pause, you do something most people are too impatient to do. You create space. Space for reflection, space for impact, space for the words you've already spoken to sink in before you say another. It's the difference between someone who talks to be heard and someone who speaks to be understood. Look at the greatest communicators, the most compelling leaders, the most influential minds throughout history. They don't rush. They don't throw out words carelessly. They use pauses like an artist uses brush strokes, deliberately, intentionally, with precision. They know that a well-placed pause can be more powerful than the words themselves. It forces people to lean in, to anticipate, to feel the weight of what's coming next. And that's where real influence happens, not in the noise, but in the silence between words. But most people don't trust the pause. They fear that if they stop speaking, even for a second, they'll lose momentum. They believe that filling every gap makes them sound more confident, more knowledgeable, more in control. But what they don't realize is that the opposite is true. Talking too much, too fast, without giving space for reflection, dilutes your message. It makes your words blend into the background, easily forgotten, because there was no moment of stillness to let them settle. The pause commands presence. It forces the other person to process what's been said. It allows you to control the rhythm of the conversation instead of being controlled by it. When you pause, you set the tempo. You dictate the pace. You create anticipation. And in doing so, you shift the power dynamic entirely in your favor. And it's not just in speaking, it's in decision making, in negotiation, in leadership, in life. The person who masters the pause controls the flow of energy. They don't react impulsively. They don't jump at the first opportunity or the first response. They let things settle. They observe. They create room for deeper understanding before they act. And because of that, their actions carry far more weight. Think about a moment when someone made a statement that really hit you, one that stuck with you long after they said it. Chances are it wasn't because they talked endlessly, it was because they gave their words room to breathe. They paused, they let the moment land. And in doing so, they made sure you felt the full impact of what they were saying. Pausing also reveals confidence. Someone who isn't afraid of silence, who doesn't feel the need to rush to a response, exudes control. They show that they are secure in their presence, that they don't need to fill every moment with words to be valuable. And people respect that. They respect someone who doesn't scramble to be heard, but instead chooses their moments with precision. But mastering the pause isn't just about influencing others. It's about mastering yourself. It's about breaking free from the impulse to react, to respond, to prove something at every turn. It's about learning to sit with stillness, to embrace it, to use it as a tool rather than something to be avoided. Because in that space, in that moment of quiet, clarity emerges. And with clarity comes control. And once you develop that control, once you master the ability to pause when others rush, to hold back when others react, to create space when others fill it, you stop being someone who just speaks. You become someone people actually listen to. Patience is power, but not the passive kind of patience that people mistake for inaction. The real kind, the kind that holds, the kind that knows, the kind that understands that the longer you wait, the more energy gathers in your favor. Most people don't have the discipline to wait. They want results now. They want recognition now. They want to control everything, force everything, rush everything. But in doing so, they sabotage their own success. Because energy, the momentum, the influence, the opportunities that shape your life doesn't respond to desperation, it responds to certainty. Think about the forces that shape the world. Water carves through rock, not by force, but by patience. A tree doesn't fight to grow, it waits for the right conditions, absorbing what it needs, storing energy, expanding its roots until it's unshakable. The universe itself operates on timing. The seasons don't rush, the tides don't hurry. Everything that is powerful understands one thing: energy moves to those who have the patience to let it build. But most people can't stand to wait. They chase, they force, they react, they try to manipulate the timing of things that aren't ready, and in doing so, they push away what could have come naturally. Because here's the truth: nothing great comes from desperation. No one is attracted to someone who's always chasing, always forcing, always grasping. People, opportunities, success, they're drawn to those who hold their ground, who let energy come to them instead of constantly reaching for it. You've seen this in life. The person who needs approval never gets it. The one who begs for attention is the first to be ignored. The job that's chased too aggressively slips away. The relationship that's clung to falls apart. Why? Because energy flows to those who wait. Waiting doesn't mean doing nothing. It means positioning yourself. It means standing firm in your value, preparing yourself for the moment when things align. It means knowing that when you hold your energy, when you don't scatter it in 100 directions, it builds. And when it builds, it attracts. The most powerful people in any room are never the ones trying to prove themselves. They're the ones who know their worth without needing to announce it. They sit back, they observe, they allow things to come to them, and because of that, people can't help but be drawn to them. Their energy isn't frantic, it's magnetic. The same principle applies to everything: business, relationships, negotiations, influence. The person who jumps too soon, who reacts without thinking, who speaks before they should, loses. The person who waits, who lets the situation unfold, who lets others reveal their cards first, wins. But waiting takes discipline. It takes the ability to trust that just because something isn't happening now doesn't mean it won't happen. It takes the confidence to know that what's meant for you will come, and that by holding your energy instead of wasting it on impatience, you are only making yourself stronger. And the moment you understand this, the moment you learn to stand still while others chase, to hold back while others grasp, to trust that energy is always moving in your favor, when you stop forcing, everything changes. You stop pushing, you stop doubting, you stop scattering your power on things that don't deserve it. And in that space, in that moment of stillness, you become a magnet for everything you once chased. Silence is not emptiness. It is not weakness. It is not a lack of something. It is a force that has shaped wars, commanded respect, broken egos, and shifted the course of entire conversations, negotiations, and power dynamics. Those who understand how to wield silence do not need to raise their voice to make an impact. They do not need to fight for attention. They do not need to prove themselves through words, because silence, when used with control, is far more powerful than any argument, any outburst, any plea for recognition. Silence creates discomfort. Most people cannot handle it. They rush to fill it, to explain themselves, to justify their position, to keep the energy moving because they fear what happens in stillness. But those who are masters of silence thrive in that discomfort. They understand that silence makes people reveal themselves. That the longer you hold it, the more the other person will speak, exposing their weaknesses, their insecurities, their true intentions. In negotiation, the one who can stay silent the longest holds the power. Imagine a room where two people are discussing a deal. One speaks first, making their case, defending their stance, eager to gain approval. The other simply listens, nods, says nothing. The seconds stretch. The first speaker, uncomfortable with the lack of response, starts talking more, revealing more, giving away their position out of pure nervousness. And just like that, the person who said nothing has won. This happens in everyday life. In arguments, the person who stays silent while the other person spirals into emotional over-explanation wins. In leadership, the person who speaks only when necessary holds the most respect. In relationships, the person who knows how to pause, how to let the silence settle, how to resist the need to over-explain or overreact, controls the direction of the conversation. Silence forces the other person to face themselves. When you remove words, when you remove distractions, when you simply hold stillness, the other person is left with nothing but their own thoughts, their own anxieties, their own insecurities. And in that moment, they will reveal more to you than they ever would have if you had tried to pull it out of them through force. But silence is not just about external power, it is also a weapon for internal mastery. When you learn to be silent, you gain control over yourself. You stop reacting to everything. You stop giving away your emotions so easily. You stop letting people manipulate you with words, because you understand that true power does not come from what is said, it comes from what is not said. The ability to withhold words is a sign of dominance over your own mind. When you can pause instead of arguing, when you can resist the urge to defend yourself unnecessarily, when you can let someone else speak their mind while you simply observe, you are no longer controlled by your emotions. You become the one who controls the room. And the world responds to this. The person who doesn't rush to speak is the one people listen to when they do. The one who holds silence is the one people respect. The one who knows when to say nothing at all is the one who leaves the greatest impact, because in the end, words are cheap. Everyone has them, everyone uses them, but silence is rare. And in its rarity lies its power. Silence is not emptiness, it is presence. It is not weakness, it is strength. It is not inaction, it is the ultimate form of control. When you stop chasing, when you stop forcing, when you stop reacting to every impulse, you shift the entire balance of power in your favor. The world is noisy. People fight to be heard, to prove themselves, to demand attention. But the ones who truly hold influence, they don't beg for it. They don't scream for it. They command it by their very presence. They move with certainty. They speak with precision. They allow things to come to them because they know that energy flows to those who wait, observe, and act only when the moment is right. Master silence, and you will master yourself. Master yourself, and everything else will follow.